get way back from y'all. Maybe that'll keep y'all from catching my germs, huh? Okay, so let's talk about this paper you're gonna do for Glass Menagerie. All right, you are shopping around for a topic that is arguable, a thesis or a claim that is arguable. So each of these questions that are on here can be responded to, and your answer could be turned into like a thesis statement, right? So one of the questions is Laura's encounter with Tom. See, I already made a mistake. Dadgummit, it's not supposed to be Tom, it's supposed to be Jim. Y'all fix that on your paper. I'm gonna have to remember to get in Canvas and fix that one too. Is Laura's encounter with Jim beneficial or detrimental? Detrimental means harmful, okay? Be sure to discuss the unicorn. So that's probably like the key question to the play, I think, right? Is she left shattered like that unicorn that's broken? Or is she left with enough confidence, enough of a boost to like be able to pull herself out of that imaginary world and go live her life, right? The horn's broken off the unicorn, making it what? A horse. So maybe she can just be like the other horses, right? You have to stand on one side of the other, make a claim, and then find your evidence in the play to support your claim. So that's just one of several questions here that you could use. But as we look through these different scenes today, I want you to be thinking about the evidence that you could pull, and then I'll be giving you some hints about some of the evidence that you could pull too, depending on what your paper topic is. All right. So yesterday, you're gonna be taping a while. You gonna be okay with that?
Yeah.
All right, good. Thank you. I appreciate it. Avery Bain is taping, so if I'm out of focus or if I look fat, it's her fault. Okay. All right. So we're gonna go back to where we left off the other day, okay? And we didn't get very far, but we're gonna hustle through the rest of this. We're gonna hit the high points, okay? So y'all will have to keep up with me. I think we all have the same copy of the books. That's super, super helpful. All right, now, did we get to the part the other day that we talked about like opium dens and cat houses?
No.
We did not. That's one of my favorite little sections. So skip over to page 23. Okay, this is in scene 3, and again, these scenes are the ones that are listed beneath the bio. So if you're like, you get home, you're like, oh, what did we talk about? That'll, maybe help you out, okay? All right, Amanda is constantly telling Tom, you're so selfish. You're so selfish. But who is paying the bills?
Tom.
Tom's paying the bills, right? So to me, it seems like maybe Amanda needs to cut him a break, because he's the one that's responsible and paying for the bills, and she just keeps on harping on him, right? So Tom has had enough. Here's one of the first times in the play where he blows up and kind of goes off on his mom. He says, listen, you think I'm crazy about the warehouse? You think I'm in love with the Continental Shoemakers? You think I want to spend 55 years down there in that Singlatex interior with fluorescent tubes? Listen, I'd rather somebody picked up a crowbar. Might want to highlight this, y'all. I'd rather someone pick up a crowbar and batter out my brains than go back mornings, but I go. And every time you come in yelling that damn rise and shine, I say to myself how lucky dead people are. But I get up, I go. For $65 a month, I give up all that I dream of doing and being ever, and say, self, you say self's all I think of. Well, listen, if self is what I thought of, Mother, I'd be gone where he is. And he's pointing to who?
His dad.
Yeah, the dad, right? The dad who's only left the portrait. And he says, I'd go as far as transportation can get me. So if you're looking at the question of Tom and whether his ultimate, abandonment of the family is selfish or just survival, like he has to or he's not going to make it, you gotta choose one or the other and then go through and find your evidence. So if you're looking at, okay, Tom, though it may seem selfish to abandon his family, he had to get himself out of there in order to survive. If that's your thesis, then you want to, look at that passage that really shows his desperation. When he says, I think about how lucky dead people are, I mean, that shows you the extent of his frustration and his misery. Okay? Little anecdote. Anecdote, by the way, is like a little story that's on an aside. So I used to teach in South Louisiana. First few years I was teaching, the first years of teaching are difficult anyway, right? But I had an hour commute. I lived in Lafayette and taught in a little town called Crowley. And I would have to drive an hour to get to school. That job was so hard and so, I don't know, just frustrating that there were days that I was on the interstate just thinking, if I got in a wreck right now, I wouldn't have to go to school. I could lay in a hospital bed and probably sleep all day. I mean, that's how difficult that job was. Now, I stuck with it because I don't quit, okay? But I know that feeling of like, God, if I could just be anywhere but here, right? Haven't had it in a while, luckily, but I remember it from my old days. By the way, I was only 22 when I started teaching high school. All my other friends were like in college partying. So I was like, what the heck? What was I thinking? All right, go to where Tom, again, kind of lashes out at his mom. So have y'all ever been accused by your parents of doing something really, really, really bad? And you're like, but I really didn't. I really didn't do it. I mean, you might have done it before, but not this time, by golly. Here is Tom, whose mom is assuming the absolute worst of him. And so, to make a point, he over-exaggerates. He says, and this is on page 24, by the way, okay? Tom says, you're right, Mom, I'm going to opium dens. Yes, opium dens, dens of vice and criminals' hangouts, Mother. I've joined the Hogan gang. I'm a hired assassin. I carry a Tommy gun and a violin case. I run a string of cat houses in the valley. You guys know what a cat house is? These are life lessons, people. A cat house is a brothel. Do we know what a brothel is? It's a whorehouse. Does he really own a string of whorehouses? No. Okay? But he's taking what his mom's imagining and then like amping it up, right? To make a point. Okay? They call me Killer Wingfield. I'm leading a double life, a simple, honest warehouse worker by day, by night a dynamic czar of the underworld, Mother. I go to gambling casinos. I spin away fortunes on the roulette table. I wear a patch over one eye and a false mustache, and sometimes I put on green whiskers. On those occasions, they call me El Diablo. What's El Diablo? Well, the devil. Diablo's Spanish for the devil. They call me the devil. Oh, I could tell you many things to make you sleepless. My enemies plan to dynamite this place. They're going to blow us sky high some night, and I'll be glad. Very happy. So will you. You'll go up on a broomstick over Blue Mountain with 17 gentlemen callers, you old, ugly, babbling witch. Right? Now, here's the thing. He's lashed out, as he probably, has a right to do, okay? Except that in the end, before he just storms out of there, he's trying to get his coat on, and he's trying to like put his arm through that sleeve of the coat, and in that kind of fussing around and trying to get out of there in a hurry, he of course knocks into the shelving, and one of Laura's ornaments falls off the shelf and breaks. And it's like she has this almost physical response. When this little item, this ornament that she loves breaks, she cries out like she's wounded, okay? So here is another way to emphasize that Laura is fragile. She really should be treated with care, but the people that love her most and whom she loves most don't always do that. because every time her brother and mother get in some kind of fight, she's the one that ends up getting hurt. She's the mediator. She has to, try to keep the peace, and that is stressful. Okay? Alright, so they're not going to speak for a while. Tom disappears. Go to the next scene, 26. Page 26, that is. So Tom is going to go to the movies, and I think he really does go to the movies, y'all. Okay? But on this particular night, he stays extra late. He does not come in until like almost dawn. But he's a little intoxicated. Actually, he's a lot intoxicated. And he has trouble like getting the key in the door. And he wakes up Laura, and she is going to ask him, did you have to stay the whole time? And he tells her all about his experience at the movies, okay? So, starting with where Tom reads One Crack and It Falls Through Tanaya, right? Yeah. Tanaya? Yes? Yeah. Okay. Read for Tom. And let's see. Okay. I know that's Caroline, right? But remind me of your name.
Claire.
Claire. I want you to read for Laura. Okay, so tonight I start off with One Crack and It Falls Through, okay?
Okay. One crack and it falls through. Tom, what are you doing? Looking for a door key. Where have you been all this time? I have been to the movies. All this time at the movies? There was a very long program. There was a Garbo picture and a Mickey Mouse and a travelogue and a newsreel and a preview of coming attractions. And there was an organ solo and a collection from Milk Fun simultaneously, which ended in a terrible fight between a fat lady and a usher.
I don't know why I think that's funny, but anyway, go ahead.
Did you have to stay through everything? Of course, and oh, I forgot, there was a big stage show. The headliner on this thing was Malvolio,
Yep.
the magician. He performed wonderful tricks, many of them, such as pouring water back and forth between pitchers. First, it turned to wine, and then it turned to beer, and then it turned to whiskey. I know it was whiskey when it finally turned into, because he needed somebody to come up out of the audience to help him, and I came up. Both shows. It was Kennedy Straight Bourbon, a very generous fellow. He gave souvenirs. He gave me this. This is his magic scarf. You can have it, Laura. You wave it on the canary cage, and you get a bowl of goldfish. You wave it over the goldfish bowl, and they fly away, canaries. But the wonderfulest trick of all was the coffin trick. We nailed him into a coffin, and he got out the coffin without moving one nail. There's a trick that will come in handy for me. Get me out of this 2x4 situation.
Yeah, highlight that for sure. You know how important it is because it was on that quiz the other day, right? So here is that famous quote where he's like, oh man, Malvolio the magician, his best trick was he could get out of a coffin without removing the nails, which is exactly what Tom would like to do. Because what are the nails in the situation? I think we already mentioned this. His family. He really doesn't want to hurt them. But he doesn't see a way out. Now, there is one way out. There's one way he could get out of there, and even his mother, sanctions this, right? She says, look, I know you want out of here, but don't you go until what? Yeah, you find a replacement. Not just a gentleman caller, but someone who's going to take your place. We need Laura to find a man, a husband, right? So that would work. He could get out and not hurt them if he could find that replacement. Unfortunately, even though things look so promising, it's not going to be Jim. Jim's already taken. So he is going to have to remove the nails, which means he's going to end up like whom? His dad. Yeah, he's going to end up like his dad. All right, so we're going to skip ahead a little bit more. Let's see. Yeah, Amanda and Jim basically are going to decide that they need to find Laura a gentleman caller. And, I will say that on 35, if you're writing about Jim being representative of reality walking into that apartment, and then of course hope for the different characters, there is a spot on 35 you might want to mark. Amanda tells Jim, and it's right in the middle of page 35, as soon as Laura's got somebody to take care of her, married, a home of her own, independent, why, then you'll be free to go wherever you please whichever way the wind blows you. But she just says, please don't do that until we have Laura taken care of. So Amanda, of course, her big fear is that not only will she be left without any support, but also, of course, her daughter, Laura. Okay? All right. So go to page 39. Go to page 39. So the fire escape obviously is a big symbol in the play. But there is also a passage I want to read, and this may not even be something that'll help you with your paper, but I just think it's kind of cool. Tom's going to tell us about being out on that fire escape and being able to see the Paradise Dance Hall down the alley. And this is what he has to say. So in the middle of 39, just kind of follow along. You might want to highlight some of this. Tom tells us, the audience, across the alley from us was the Paradise Dance Hall. On evenings in spring, the windows and the doors were open and the music came outdoors. Sometimes the lights were turned out except for a large glass sphere that they hung from the ceiling. So like that, glass ball, the disco ball type thing, right? It would turn slowly about and filter the dusk with delicate rainbow colors. Then the orchestra played a waltz or a tango, something that had a slow, sensuous rhythm, and couples would come outside to the relative privacy of the alley. You could even see them kissing behind the pits and telephone poles. Now this you might want to mark. This was the compensation for lives that passed like mine, without any change or adventure. Adventure and change were imminent in this year. They were waiting around the corner for all these kids, suspended in the midst over Berchtesgaden, which is a place in Germany. Caught in the folds of Chamberlain's umbrella. Chamberlain would be the Prime Minister of England at the time. Remember, this is the 1930s. And in Spain, there was Guernica, that's a revolution. But here, there was only hot swing music and liquor and dance halls and bars and movies and sex that hung in the gloom like a chandelier and flooded the world with brief, deceptive rainbows. All the world was waiting for bombardments. Okay, now I just think this is like a super cool passage. Again, I don't know if it's something that you're going to use in your paper, but I love that he reminds us of the time period. Because if this is the 1930s and he's bored, and he's representative of this generation who's waiting for change, waiting for action. And he says, all the world is waiting for bombardments. What is the shortened version of bombardment? Well, bombard, but even shorter than that. Bomb. Yeah. I never thought of the connection there, that bomb is something that's short for bombardment, right? And bombs are what we associate with war, explosions, and what war is going to lift America out of the economic depression of the 1930s? I'll give you a hint. It's one of the world wars. Which one is it?
World War II.
World War II. Okay? So he's hinting that something's going to come along in the future, in the near future, that's going to bring about bombardments, change. Okay? Not just physical bombs, but like something that's going to rock the world, that generation. Again, a reminder that he's just one of many young people at that time who must have felt really trapped and alone and frustrated, immobile. The world's going to change, okay? All right, they find a gentleman caller. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And we find out that this gentleman caller just so happens is already known by Laura. How? Yeah, this is her crush. This is someone that she still pulls the old yearbook out and looks at. Which, by the way, is a good, plug for your yearbook. Buy a yearbook. So that when you're 24, living alone with your mom, right, you'll be able to pull it out and look at that crush that you had in high school. I hope that's not your future. I hope that's not your life. Don't be like Laura, okay? So she pulls out the yearbook and kind of reminisces because this is the one person that she's kind of had a crush on, and it just so happens he becomes the gentleman caller. And Jim is the real world stepping into that apartment. He's also Hope for each of the characters. We've talked about that a lot. One more thing though. Jim is going to tell Laura, I am interested in television, which to us sounds outdated because y'all all watch probably Netflix on your laptops and stuff now, but in the 1930s, television was like, I mean, it was an infant. I want to say it was first shown to the public, like the first television was viewed by the public in the 1938, I think, World's Fair that was in St. Louis. So like when he says, I'm into television, he's telling us that he's about the future. Okay? That's going to be important. He's not just the real world and the present world walking in, but he's got his head on the future, whereas Amanda, the mom, always has her head where? In the past. Okay? Something else to kind of think about there. All right, so Jim's going to come in, and they got to get Laura all gussied up, okay? Laura has got to look her absolute best. So on page 51, the bottom of the page, in italics, and y'all can pull quotes from the italics for your paper. You don't have to just pull what people said to each other, okay? It says, Laura stands in the middle of the room with lifted arms, while Amanda crouches before her, adjusting the hem of her new dress, devout and ritualistic. The dress is colored and designed by memory, because remember, Tom's telling all of this through his memory of it, okay? Laura's hair has changed. It's softer and more becoming. What does that mean if someone says, oh, that's really becoming on you? Have you ever heard that before? It's really old-fashioned. If I said, wait a minute, don't tell me, hang on, you just told me your name. What is it again?
Claire.
Claire. If I said, oh, Claire, that top is really becoming on you, it means it's cute, it looks good on you, okay? So Laura, they fixed her hair up. I don't want y'all to think Laura's ugly or plain, by the way. It's real easy to read this play and think, wow, she must be super homely. That's not really it. I mean, physically, she's always played by actresses that are, you know, pretty. It's not her physical thing that's the problem. What's the problem with Laura?
Mental thing.
That's her confidence. I mean, she has none, right? And so she, you know, it's a mental thing that keeps her from stepping out and living her life, okay? Highlight this line. A fragile, unearthly prettiness has come out in Laura. She's like a piece of translucent glass. Translucent means what?
See-through.
See-through, yeah. Glass that's touched by light, given a momentary radiance, but it's not actual and it's not lasting. So this is Laura at her best self. And her, you know, her beauty or prettiness, I suppose you could say, is translucent, much like a piece of glass is translucent, okay? So if you're gonna take a look at Laura being represented by the glass that she loves so much, you gotta use this passage. You can't just talk about her being fragile. You have to also recognize that she's got a translucent beauty like glass, okay? All right, so they're gonna get her all gussied up, but when she figures out that it's Jim that's coming, she's gonna be so nervous she doesn't even want to answer the door, and she's physically sick to her stomach. Finally, her mom just kind of bullies her into coming to dinner and sitting down and talking, and in the middle of dinner, the lights go out. Do you remember why the electricity goes out?
Tom didn't pay the bill.
Tom didn't pay the bill. Tom spent the money that was supposed to be on the bill to pay for his membership fee, I don't know, to the Merchant Marines. So in Tom's mind, he's already like out of there, okay? Here's the thing though, and I did not put this as a possible paper topic, but I think it would make an interesting paper. If you're looking at the use of light, in this scene. The electricity goes out. That puts them into the dark where they have to use candles. Amanda, talks about how she likes candlelight because it's they used candlelight when she was a girl. So it's kind of like, for this moment, it's taking them out of the present world and putting them back in the past. And I'm wondering if Jim even gets kind of sucked into that a little bit too. Because we know Jim gets caught up in the moment because he kisses her when he really shouldn't have. Okay? So you have this whole idea of electricity going out, and you've got the candles. And we're going to read it in a minute, but at the very end of the play, when Tom has moved on, but he's still kind of haunted by his memories of Laura, remember what he says. He says, blow your candles out, Laura, for now the future is lit by lightning. Lightning, if you remember your Ben Franklin story, lightning's connected to what? What was Ben Franklin out looking for and messing around with when he had the key and the kite? Electricity, yeah. So you have all these ideas of this, that Amanda's in the past, Jim represents the future. I mean, there's just a lot of layers going on, okay? All right, let's take a look at Jim and Laura really having what seems to be a good time, and you think everything's gonna work out, it's gonna be awesome. Not so much. All right, go to, let's see if I can find it. Oh, go to page 84. So Jim is gonna try to get Laura to loosen up. Remember, she's like glass, so she'd be, stiff. It'd be hard to loosen up if you are represented by glass, right? And he's gonna get her to try to dance. So, Tania, do you see where it says, how about cutting the rug a little? It's raw. I think it's not quite the middle of 84, but close. Look, right here.
Oh, I see it now.
You got it? And and then Claire, you got from there?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Go ahead, Antonia.
You want me to brief the Jim?
I do.
Okay, how about cutting the rug a little, Miss Wingfield? Or is your program filled up? Let me have a look at it. While every dance is taken, I'll just have to scratch some out.
Now, they start playing a waltz.
Waltz. I can't dance. There you go. That inferiority stuff.
I've never danced in my life.
Come on, try.
Oh, but I'd step on you.
I'm not made out of glass.
Wow, okay. So again, Tennessee Williams slapping us over the head with this symbolism. Jim says, don't worry about stepping on me. I'm not made of glass. What does that emphasize about Laura, though? Yeah, she is. Exactly. Not literally, folks, okay? This is not Unbreakable or whatever. What's that movie where the guy's like, mate, you have no idea what I'm talking about. Samuel L. Jackson? Never mind. All right. He says, I'm not made of glass. Go ahead. What?
Are you talking about Glass? Like the movie?
Is it called Glass?
Yeah. When they have like split personality?
Oh, no. This is a different movie. This is an older movie. It's got Samuel L. Jackson, and he's got a condition where, like, his bones shatter. He could bump into the table and, like,
he's in a wheelchair?
Yes. Okay, so you know what I'm talking about. All right. Just a little aside. All right, go ahead, Laura.
How do we start?
Just leave it to me. You hold out your arms a little. Like this. A little bit higher, right? And don't tighten up. That's the main thing about it. Relax.
It's hard not to.
Okay.
I'm afraid you can't budge me.
What do you bet I can't?
Goodness, yes you can.
Let yourself go now, Laura. Just let yourself go.
I'm
Come on.
trying.
Not so stiff. Easy does it.
I know, but I'm...
Loosen the backbone. There now. That's a lot better.
Am
Lots better.
I? Oh my.
Haha.
That's always awkward when you have to, like, read their laughter. Ha ha. Go ahead.
Oh my goodness.
Ha ha ha.
And of course they bump. They're having such a good time. You're like, yes, things are gonna work out. But then they bump into the table, and the little, unicorn that she calls Freckles is gonna fall off. Go ahead. I think it might be Jim where he says, what did we hit on?
Oh yeah, what did we hit on? Table. Did something fall off it? I think.
Yes.
I hope it wasn't a little glass horse with a horn.
Yes.
Oh, is it broken?
No, it's just like all the other horses.
It's lost its
horn. It doesn't matter. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise.
You'll never forgive me. I bet that was your favorite piece of glass.
I don't have favorites much. It's no tragedy. Freckles, glass breaks so easily. No matter how careful you are. Traffic jars the shelves and things fall off of them.
Still, I'm awfully sorry that I was the cause.
I'll just imagine he had an operation. The horn was removed to make him feel less freakish. Now he will feel more at home with the other horses, the ones that don't have horns.
Okay, so if you are looking at Laura and her being like the glass, you gotta bring up the unicorn, okay? But here's the deal. The unicorn, I think, could tell us a couple of different things, right? By the way, when she says, it's no big tragedy, Freckles, she's talking to the unicorn because, you know, she's named all her little pieces of glass and stuff, so it's kind of sad. But she says, you know, it's all right. I'll just pretend he had an operation and he won't feel so freakish. He can now hang out with the other horses and, you know, he'll fit in, all that good stuff. So if you're looking at Jim being helpful, this encounter with Jim being helpful to Laura ultimately, that's a passage you want to look at to show that, you know, symbolically, she's going to be okay. She's going to be able to step out of her comfort zone and, you know, enter into other places rather than that apartment and actually feel accepted and welcome and all that kind of stuff, okay? Now, the flip side of that is that, I mean, the unicorn is broken. Maybe she's left broken, and there's definitely evidence to suggest that as well, okay? So, let's skip a little bit. He's gonna tell her that she's pretty. She's like, well, in what way am I pretty? And he really does seem to appreciate that she's different. He's like, everybody else is like common weeds. You're blue roses. She's like, but blue roses are wrong. Roses aren't supposed to be blue. And he's like, no, that's what makes it really great, okay? All right, so if you'll read for Jim where it starts, in all respects, believe me, and on my, it's 88.
Okay.
Okay?
In all respects, believe me, your eyes, your hair are pretty. Your hands are pretty. You think I'm making this up because I'm invited to dinner and have to be nice? Oh, I could do that. I could put on an act for you, Laura, and say lots of things without being very sincere. But this time I am. I'm talking to you sincerely. I happen to notice you in this inferiority complex that keeps you from feeling comfortable with people. Somebody needs to build up your confidence and make you proud instead of shy and turning away and blushing. Somebody ought to kiss you, Laura.
And he does. Here's the thing. He lays that kiss on her, and it really, I hate to say rocks her to the core, but I mean, she like sits down and she's just kind of like in a daze. I mean, her mind is probably this kind of whirlwind of possibilities, and as soon as he kisses her, his response is much, much different. He's like, oh. He calls himself a stumble John, which I'm assuming means like idiot, right? And he goes on to tell her, I shouldn't have done that. I've got ties on me. I'm dating someone. I'm actually engaged. Now, there are some hints about how this leaves her that you want to highlight, okay? So if you go all the way over there to 89 underneath, let's see. Well, it's in italics and also in parentheses or brackets. Towards the end it says, there's a pause, slowly, ever slowly, Laura's look changes. Her eyes returning slowly from his to the glass figure in her palm. She hears her mother in the background and she says, you won't call again? And he says, no. Now, go to the next page. He's talking about how love's changed him, which is kind of cruel if you think about it, right? Because she may or may not ever experience love. So as he's going on and on about this, it says, again in brackets and in italics, Laura sways slightly forward, grips the arm of the sofa. He fails to notice, okay? And the next part it says, leaning stiffly forward, clutching the arm of the sofa, Laura struggles visibly with her storm. What's the storm that they're referring to?
Her emotion.
Yeah, her emotion. Absolutely. Absolutely. Good job. Struggles with her storm. But Jim is oblivious. He has no idea. Okay? Next little part, you want to highlight this too, and this is also in italics. He flops back down on the sofa. This is so important, y'all. The holy candles on the altar of Laura's face have been snuffed out. There's a look of almost infinite desolation. Now she's going to bravely say she's fine. And she's even going to present him with Freckles, you know, the little unicorn that's now a horse, okay? But when it describes her look and says the holy candles on the altar of her face have been snuffed out, I mean, that's pretty bleak. That's kind of like the light has gone from her eyes. She's got a look of infinite. What's infinite mean? Forever. Desolation. So if you're looking at Laura as being crushed, she's not going to be able to come back from this. That's an excellent passage to choose. Okay? All right. So Jim's going to, of course, let Amanda know that he's actually engaged. Amanda, in true Amanda form, blames Tom, assumes that Tom knew the whole time that Jim was engaged. That's so unfair. That's so unfair to poor Tom. And in fact, let's go ahead and read this because it's very, very close to the end. So go to, let's see. Jim's gonna leave and Amanda is going to call Tom in. So let's see. Caroline, read for Amanda. And this is at the very top of 95. The gentleman caller has made an early departure. Do you see that? Okay, go ahead.
The gentleman caller has made an early departure. What a wonderful joke you played on us.
Oh, I don't know that I had a Tom. Okay, tell me your name again. Wait, it's Anne Michelle. Okay, Anne Michelle, read for Tom.
Okay. How do you mean?
You didn't mention that he was engaged to be married.
Jim engaged?
That's what you just informed us.
I'll be jiggered.
I love that. I'll be jiggered. I guess that means, well, I'll be darned.
I didn't know about that.
That seems very peculiar.
What's peculiar about it?
Didn't you call him your best friend down at the warehouse?
He is, but how did I know?
It seems extremely peculiar that you wouldn't know your best friend was going to be married.
The warehouse is where I work, not where I know things about people.
You don't know things anywhere. You live in a dream. You manufacture illusions.
And that's super unfair to me because I think of all the characters, Amanda's the one that lives in a dream. But that's just me. And she's like, where are you going? And of course he responds,
Going to the movies.
yep, go ahead, Amanda.
That's right. Now you've had us make such fools of ourselves. The effort, the preparations, all the expense. The new floor lamp, the rug, the clothes for Laura. All for what? To entertain some girl's fiance. Go to the movies. Go. Don't think about us, a mother deserted, an unmarried sister who's crippled and has no job. Don't let anything interfere with your selfish pleasure. Just go. Go to the movies.
Alright, I will. The more you shout about my selfishness to me, the quicker I'll go, and I'll go to the movies.
Go then. Go to the moon, you selfish dreamer.
Okay, that line of hers is really one of the famous lines in the play. Then just go to the moon, you selfish dreamer. And here is what Tom has to say. But you gotta also kind of picture what this would look like. On stage, Amanda's gonna be comforting Laura. Okay, now they're sitting there by candlelight. Tom is gonna pull out because he becomes the narrator, not just a character, but a narrator. And he's gonna tell us what he does, that he leaves. But we've already talked about the fact that he gets away from them, but doesn't truly get away from them, right? And so all this is kind of going on simultaneously, okay? All right, he says, I didn't go to the moon, I went much further, for time is the longest distance between two places.
Jack, it's just a reminder, when the bell rings for the first lunch shift, you'll report straight to lunch. And I would ask that all of you that are going to the cafeteria use the 2 center down stairwells. And remember, your social distancing, you have various locations where you can wait, but Jack's Landing has too many kids in it, so I'm going to direct the duty people to move you out of Jack's Landing if you're not able to sit, and sit 6 feet from one another. Thank you.
Okay, he said, I was fired for writing a poem on the lid of the shoebox. I left St. Louis. I descended the fire escape for the last time. Followed from then on in my father's footsteps, attempting to find in motion what was lost in space. I traveled around a great deal. The city swept about me like dead leaves, leaves that were brightly colored but torn away from the branches. So does he find the happiness that he thought he was going to find? Absolutely not, okay? He says, sometimes he would smell a smell or hear a sound or see something that would remind him of Laura, and at the very end, he says, Laura, I tried to leave you behind me, but I'm more faithful than I intended to be. I reach for a cigarette across the street, I run into the movies or a bar, I buy a drink, I speak to the nearest stranger, make sure you highlight this, anything that can blow your candles out. What does he mean when he says, I do anything I can to blow your candles out?
He tries to get rid of them.
Yeah, anything that will distract me from memories of you. Then at the very end, he says, for nowadays the world is lit by lightning. What is lightning? We already talked about this.
Electricity.
Electricity. Blow out your candles, Laura, and so goodbye. So the last line can be taken a couple of different ways, I think. In one way, it could be, let me go. You know, he's physically apart. Time-wise, it's been a long time, but he cannot help but be haunted by these memories. And he's like, blow your candles out, let me go. I think the other thing, though, could be that the candlelight represents the past and the world that Laura and Amanda are in. When he says, blow your candles out, for now the world is lit by lightning, what else is he asking her to do?
Let go of your past.
Do what, Leanne?
Let go of your past.
Yeah, let go of that and step out into like the real world, you know? So there are a couple of ways that you can take the ending of that. One thing I want to talk about real quick before you go, if I have time, on the outline, and I want your outline on Monday. So y'all can come in and it's going to be filled out, okay? It's down here. Yeah.
What is the actual essay part?
Miss Parker.
Oh, I haven't even put that in yet, okay? Yeah, just one thing at a time, all right? No, keep going. Sorry, Avery. Okay, I owe you like a candy bar or something. All right, so if you notice, there's an outline here. I do want to ask that you find an opening quote to start your paper, because that's a real easy way to get into your essay. Gives you something to talk about in the introduction. It also gives you something to kind of come back around to in the conclusion. Y'all, the opening quote does not have to be something in the play. It can be something from anyone that's related to the topic, okay? You're gonna have questions about this, let me know and I'll help you out, all right? Yeah.
So if I chose